Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Gosell. I'm the Chief of the Office of Small Business Programs, Army Corps of Engineers. Do you say so? Welcome. And if you don't mind, please take a moment to silence your phones and stand so we can say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so here we are again this year. You can see how much we have grown since my tenure as the Chief of Office of Small Business Programs, and it's very exciting to see you all here and have this opportunity to network together. I'm going to allow our Commander, Colonel John Hurley, to start us off.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good morning.
Okay, it's going to be a long day. We got to do a little better than that. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? All right. Hey, before we get settled in today, I'd just like to please join me in thanking Rebecca and Karen and the whole team of folks who put on this morning, and then folks who put on this afternoon's Sammy performance, because there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. If you've ever organized an event, you know they're never smooth, and I know they were working all night, stuffing envelopes and stuff like that. So please join me and give them a big round of applause. All right, I don't know about you, but I'm very excited about today, and I'll tell you, I'm excited just because I love being an engineer, and more importantly, I love the business of engineering. Because for me, the business of engineering is much broader than just physics and math equations and the hardcore, your APE, right? And engineering, in my mind, is just the process of coming up with sophisticated and nuanced solutions to the toughest problems before you. And that requires the entire team to do that, right? It requires the government, it requires industry, it requires large business, it requires small business, it requires engineers, it requires project management professionals, it requires acquisition professionals, it requires everyone, right? So, and for me, today's events are fundamentally about solving our problems, right? So we're going to take a little bit of time this morning, explain to you about the Huntsville Center, what the center does, and then we're going to talk to you about some of our upcoming challenges and our acquisition strategies to get at those. And we're counting on you to be great stakeholders and help us ask the right questions up front, help us make the right assumptions, and help us figure out what the nuanced and sophisticated solutions are. So as you go throughout today, please keep that in mind. Please be an active part of this, and please help us get to the right answer, right? Because we're not doing this just to do this, right? At the end of the day, there's a soldier, or there's a sailor, or there's an airman, or there's a Marine, or a family member, or a veteran at the back end of this that is counting on us to get them the best quality at the best price. And you are an instrumental part of that for us. So, okay, next slide. So we are going to do this in a three-part presentation this morning. I got the, still on? Okay. So I have the easy part up front, I think. Well, maybe I got to roll this one. I've got the easy part up front. If you're not familiar with the center, I wanted to just take a moment and explain to you why we have a center and what we do. And then in a really broad picture, some of the portfolios we handle. And then I want to turn over to our programs director, Chip Marin, and Chip is going to walk you through our programs in greater detail. And then Colleen Keefe will come up and talk about some of the acquisition opportunities available. We'll do that for about an hour this morning. And then we'll have an opportunity to break, and as I'm sure many of you are aware, we have scores of our best program managers out there ready to talk to you and build those relationships that we're going to count on to solve our most challenging problems. Okay, so if you look up here, we've got the center's mission and vision, and I just wanted to highlight a couple things for you. The center, we're really focused on specialized technical expertise, and solving solutions globally. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But that's our mission. And our vision really counts on having a certified professional and technical workforce, right? We invest a lot in that, making sure we've got the latest and current technical competencies so that we can have the most professional conversations with you and your staffs. And we're really trying to develop an expeditionary type mindset. And in my mind, expeditionary is about there's a new, challenging development coming, and we want to be the first ones in to help figure out how to solve that problem and then pass that on to someone else if that's appropriate. So right now, I'm sure you're all aware, we've had a number of natural disasters affect our country. Down in Puerto Rico, they've lost most of their power grid, and the Corps of Engineers was given the mission to restore power in Puerto Rico. And the Corps of Engineers is using really a holistic team, folks here in the center, folks in Omaha, folks in Jacksonville, folks in headquarters, folks on the Army staff, folks down in Mobile, and they're delivering solutions to that. We've got several contracts in place to begin work on that, and we expect people on the ground by week's end to help start shaping that solution. So in my mind, that's, if you're looking for an example to help me define what expeditionary is, that's what expeditionary is in my mind. All right, next slide. One of the things that's unique about the center is that we focus on centrally managed programs, right? So if you're not completely familiar with USACE as an organization, USACE has 9 geographic division commands. Okay? Those are all led by, in most cases, by a general officer and 2 senior executive service members. Right? And they own a particular piece of terrain, and they're responsible for providing them in there. But quite frankly, some of the missions that the Corps of Engineers needs to do on behalf of the Department of Defense and other stakeholders don't fit neatly into a geographic solution. They require centrally managed programs. And you can see these up here right now. They might be broad in scope. They might require some sort of standardization or commonality. They might require some unique technical competencies kind of on the forefront. And so the USACE has created these things called centers to help them solve the problem. And that's what Huntsville Center does. All right, next slide. People always ask me, what are your geographic limits? And I think USACE would prefer we say, we don't have an area of responsibility. We help out where needed. I like to think of it the other way. We own the entire world. That's my area of responsibility. And so if you're new to helping out the center, if you're competing for a project, we do stuff all over the world, right? And so we're looking for solution sets all over the world. So wherever you're from, there's probably a Huntsville project happening in your backyard. All right, next slide. Okay, just can we build this out all the way? Next. This has got to be a Bob Brooks slide. It's really complicated. Is Bob still here, or did he leave again? Oh, there you are. All right, okay.
Still got my case.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just going to spend a minute or two on this slide, and then I want to turn it over to Chip to walk you through it, right? But so in the center, here's how we like to think about things. We've got end users out there, right? Think about hospital commanders, think about DPWs, think about installation energy managers, think about garrison command sergeants major, think about garrison commanders, right? And they have in their mind what they want. They're operating on a base that was probably last renovated in the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? But they know they want something different. They want an evidence-based medical facility, right? They want some energy security and some resilience and some information about how to better manage their energy usage. They want a base that's safe and secure from a force protection standpoint. They want to integrate on defense players. They do not have the funding they used to have, so they have to figure out how to operate, maintain their base in the most economical way possible, right? They want an environmentally sustainable base. So they have these needs. They can see their future, and they just don't know how to get there. And that's where the center comes in. We've got 5 big portfolios, 5 big baskets that we generally support. And underneath these 5 big portfolios, we've got 43 or so programs Most of those program managers are upstairs on the second floor and they're waiting to talk to you about their specialties. But if you think about these 5 big portfolios, if USACE is working in one of these lanes, there's a good chance Huntsville Center is part of that solution set, right? The first is the medical portfolio. We do a lot for initial construction and renovations and outfitting. The second is base ops and facilities. We do a lot to help upgrade bases, to furnish bases, to help third-party users of bases like DLA or missile defense continue to operate on those bases. We provide secure solutions like access control points. The third one is energy. If you've been part of the conference, the Rocket City Summit the last couple of days, you know how challenging the energy problems are for installations and other organizations. We help with energy solutions. The fourth is operational technology, right? Many of us grew up in a house where it was a house and then somebody installed a furnace and then 20 years later maybe got a window air conditioning unit and then AT&T put in a phone, right? That's not the way buildings are today. Buildings, the structure, and the IT are integral in many aspects, and our customers, our stakeholders are looking for a holistic, integrated facility that leverages IT and works seamlessly. And finally, environmental solutions, right? Environmental solutions both in the States, environmental solutions for formerly utilized defense sites, and environmental solutions overseas in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, and other places. So those are a big portfolio. So if you remember nothing else, remember that Huntsville is involved in medical, base ops, energy, operation technology of the buildings, and environmental, and you've got the broad categories. Now at this point I'll turn over to Chip and have Chip walk us through some of the more programs and a little bit more specificity. So Chip? That may work. He just got licensed.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
First of all, welcome and thank you for coming to the Small Business Conference. It is much, much appreciated. I do want to walk you through the program, so I'm going to tag team this with Colleen. Colleen is our Center Contracting Chief. So what I want to do is walk you through the programs that we have here in the Huntsville Center, tell you a little bit about what the program does, and if it piques your interest, what you ought to do is then, after we're done with this presentation, go up behind us here, where all the 43 programs are lined on the tables, and go find that program manager. Aligned with the program manager, you'll find the PDT, the Project Delivery Team. So you got the program or project manager sitting there, you've got his or her engineering representative, who provides the technical expertise to the program. You'll find the contracting or acquisition professional sitting there. And in some cases, where we have enough to go around, you actually find the Office of Counsel or the lawyer who represents that team as well. That's how we operate in the Huntsville Center, and that's what makes us really, really unique. I've been in other districts, I've been in other MSCs with the Corps of Engineers, and they have a program project management section. They have an engineering and maybe an engineering and construction section. They have an Office of Counsel. They got a resource management section. All the same things that we have here in Huntsville. But what they don't have is an integrated team who sits together each and every day as a program or project delivery team to find holistic solutions to all of the challenges. So if you come to the Huntsville Center, and I welcome people to come over there and meet the team, not just wait for these conferences once a year, you'll find the whole PDT sitting together, in a cubicle arrangement, so they all can hear the conversations that each other is having day in and day out. So they maintain situational awareness. If you're the contracting person, you might not know what's going on from a project perspective. Are we on scope or within scope? Are we on time? Is it being done safely? So having these people sitting together, everybody gets to hear all the conversations, and it makes everybody just much more aware of what's going on with that project or that program, and they then can weigh in to help deliver a holistic approach or solution to all of our problems or challenges. Give me the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to walk through each one of these portfolios that the Colonel just briefed, and I'm going to talk about the programs that are underneath of the portfolio, and then I'm going to pause for a minute, and Colleen is then going to talk to you about the acquisitions that we have ongoing associated with each of these programs, so you can understand holistically, here's a program, and here's the upcoming acquisition that we have forecast to support that program. So let me start up top with the medical facilities, CX. For everything the Corps of Engineers does that is medically related, whether it be a new hospital, a dental clinic, a medical clinic, our center of expertise is the folks, or are the folks, who look at the project design to make sure that it's in accordance with standards, it's in accordance with the unified facility criteria, or the governing standards for that type of medical facility, and they make sure that the medical components of the facility are integrated and compatible with the regular building components, so the security, the HVAC, things of that nature. Quite often, those systems will conflict with one another, and it's really, really important that when you hook up an oxygen system in a hospital, and it's being run by a computer, that the software that tells that oxygen when to flow, how much to flow, isn't interfering with the security system of the building, or things of that nature. So that's what those folks, get a backup one, please. So that's what the Medical Facility CX does. That organization belongs to the Huntsville Center, but it's headquartered, or it's located up at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. Okay, Operations and Maintenance Engineering Enhancement, OME. That's a huge program. Huntsville Center, under that contract, is resident in 55% of Defense Health Agency's facilities. And that OME program is doing the day-to-day operations, the day-to-day maintenance, the day-to-day sustainment of medical facilities worldwide. That's what that program is all about. It started off with a decade ago, and it was very, very small. We were only in a lot of the Army medical facilities, but this keeps expanding and expanding. The more that organizations, installations lose their blue-collar workforce, the more they have to turn to a contract solution to do the day-to-day maintenance in these facilities. So that's what that contract does, and again, it's resident in 55% of all of Defense Health Agency's facilities globally. Hold on now, go back. Somebody's got a quick finger up there. All right, medical repair renewal, that's the program that repairs, renovates, restores, refurbishes medical facilities. So a lot of these facilities are old, they're Vietnam vintage era facilities, and so the purpose of this program is to go into those facilities and repair them. We can repair a single room, or we can gut the whole facility and start all over again under that program. That too is a huge program, and they had one of their biggest years in 2017. They had a huge end-of-year awards. I forget how much they obligated off the top of my head, but it's in the hundreds of millions. Okay, and then the MO&T program. You got an old facility, it's being renovated, or you've got a new facility that's being built. When you build these new facilities or you renovate them, the technology that's going in these things is far, far advanced to what they had before. The furniture is different, the technology is different, the layout of the facilities is different. If you haven't been in a DoD medical facility lately, from the time you walk in the door to the time you walk out the door, a patient is tracked every minute. It knows exactly where you are. It knows when you checked in at the service desk. It knows when you're sitting with the nurse. It knows when you're in with the doctor. It knows when you're going to the pharmacy. And it knows when you're on your way out of the building, and it checks you out. So this technology and the systems that are resident in medical facilities, because they are so technologically advanced, somebody has to train the staff from the old antiquated facility into the new one. What are all these systems? How do you integrate the hospital staff to provide superior patient care? That's what that program does. So our contractor embeds with the construction contractor or the renovation contractor at about the 50% mark. So when construction or renovation is 50% done, we bring in this MO&T contract. They embed with the constructor so they know the schedule. They learn about the facility. They take good notes. And then when it's time to transition from old to new, this team is the one who trains the hospital staff or the medical clinic staff on how to operate the new facility and what all those systems are in that facility. And oh, by the way, this program also does the medical furnishings into a newly constructed facility and or a renovated facility. So that's what MO&T is all about. All right, now you can go to the next slide. All right, Colleen.
Yes. And as Chip was saying, we have some unique programs. This particular one allows you, a medical professional, to hands-free communicate and actually walk from a non-sterile environment into a sterile environment wearing this transmission equipment. So this is a great news story. This is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business because of the proprietary nature of this equipment. It also has to be cyber secure, and we're looking at protecting PII and things like that. So this is very unique equipment. We also have coming up this year, next slide. We are one of the medical CXs for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and this is AE support for construction and renovation of different facilities. And the good news with this is we have partnered with SBA on this concept of unrestricted with small business reserves. And what that means is we will have a pool of small businesses under the MATOC, and those small businesses can compete anytime we put out a solicitation under the MATOC, but we also have the right to reserve projects that are suitable for small business just to be competed against that small business group. So this allows small businesses two opportunities to play on our MATOC. So this is how we're partnering with SBA to give you more opportunities as a small business to compete. Next slide. Okay, and this is our 6th generation of this type of requirement. And again, we have the unrestricted portion with the small business reserves. And as Chip was saying, what we're looking at is maintaining these hospitals. The staffs at the hospitals are predominantly there for patient care. So when it comes to installing equipment, maintaining equipment, that's not what they do for a living. So they come to the experts who have designed these different systems to be able to use them. And as you can understand with patient care, HVAC systems are critical. We don't want germs being transmitted from place to place. We want temperatures kept steady. As you know, in Puerto Rico, without power, a lot of patients in tremendous distress because we can't keep them at a comfortable temperature. So having experts who can come in and do this for the hospital so that they can get back to patient care is one of the great things about this particular contract. Next slide. Okay. And here we have a 100% small business set aside. And again, this is to help maintain facilities. It provides professional support services to help with patient care. So we provide facility support services. So this is maintenance of the buildings. And again, that allows the people who run the hospital to focus on patient care rather than building maintenance. And also because these buildings are living entities now, with the cyber, with the HVAC systems, and all this stuff being so critical, plus the security requirements, you really need experts. And the people that run the hospitals, they're not experts in this. They're experts in patient care. Next slide.
Okay, so the next portfolio here is our facilities and base ops support. I want to walk you through each of these programs. Starting up on top there, obviously, with the facility reduction program. Facility reduction program does the exact same thing as the medical repair and renovation program, but it's focused on all other types of facility, non-medical. So it does facility, utility, infrastructure. It can do some horizontal work in there. We're not going to be paving 20 miles of Interstate 95, but it does small horizontal work, parking lots, sidewalks, and then complete tooth-to-tail facility repair and renewal under that contract. Oh, I'm sorry, that was number 2 on that slide. The top one up there is the facility reduction program. That's what we call our demo program. So if you need a building knocked down, that's what FRP does. They'll come in and knock the building down. It's a 2-phase approach on facility reduction. Phase 1 is the characterization of the building. You got to know what's in there, right? Does it have asbestos? Does it have lead-based paint in it? You got to know all the hazards. So phase 1 is the characterization of the building. It lets us know what's in there. And then phase 2 is the actual removal of hazardous material if it is in there, and proper disposition of those materials, but then the actual destruction of the building. The great thing about this program is we craft into the contract a requirement for the contractor to recycle, repurpose as much of the material as they possibly can. The money that they earn from that repurposing of those materials is added back to the contract. So we decrement the contract value by the amount of money that the contractor is going to earn by recycling materials. Right now, our cost per square foot general, every building's a little bit different, but our cost per square foot for knocking a building down is about $11 a square foot of building, which is huge. There's nobody else in the government who can take a building down for that cheap of a price. Now, I will add a caveat there, right? It's real. When the Army, when DOD started knocking stuff down, they went after the low-hanging fruit first. So all the World War II wood barracks, that many people in this room, I see people laughing, right, who lived in there for a while, the open bay barracks, those were easy. It literally was a wood shell with some wood floors in it and 2 stories. You could knock that stuff down easy. But now when you're talking about taking down a hospital, a huge hospital, you know, a couple 100,000 square foot hospital that's been sitting there for 20, 30 years, that's a whole different story. So average cost, $11 per square foot on that program. Okay, and then we have the Army Central Furnishings Program. Huntsville Center has been designated by Department of the Army, the Assistant Chief of Staff for Installation Management, AXIM, as the go-to organization for barracks, administration, family housing, lodging, furnishings. So whether you're renovating the building and put new furniture in, or it's a new construction in any one of those 4 areas, Huntsville is the place that the Army forces must use to procure the furnishings for those facilities. You know, by the way, the Navy has come to us in the last 2 years, and they want us to take on the same mission that we're doing for the Department of the Army in doing these furnishings. That also is a big program. That's you know, upwards of $100 million a year worth of obligations just buying furniture. Slide, please. Okay, access control point. For anybody who's been on a post-camp station base or whatever, you got to go through the checkpoint, right? You got to get your ID card checked. Sometimes you get vehicle searches. And these access control points are built with anti-terrorism force protection standards involved in them to make sure, or to make it really, really, really difficult for a bad guy to get through the gate. So there's a specific standard to which these access or entry control points must be constructed. Again, that's one of the programs that requires some type of centralized program project management and one set of standards applied no matter where you are in the world. So that program right there is working for Department of the Army, specifically the Office of the Provost Marshal General, Department of the Army, to build, design, provide quality assurance over that type of work. And DLA Fuels program. DLA Fuel program started right about the time I came to the center. It was a really small program. And what we were doing is maintaining and sustaining the DLA Fuels equipment. And by equipment, I mean tank, pumps, and pipes. Something that has a liquid petroleum product in it. The program has grown exponentially. We've now taken on all of the Army, a big hunk of the Navy, and in the last 12 months have taken on the entirety of the United States Air Force fuel systems. So these fuel systems are all aggregated at the DoD level under the Defense Logistics Agency. So we do the recurring preventive maintenance on all those fuel systems. Just like your car, you need to change oil. What used to be every 3,000, now maybe 5,000, maybe once a year. You know, it's a schedule. These fuel systems require predictive preventive maintenance on a routine schedule. We also, when stuff breaks between those services, we go out and do the service orders to repair it all. This program, again, started like $14 million 4 years ago, and it's up over $100 million today. Slide, please. Okay, Base Ops. Base Ops is one of my favorite programs here in the center because it does tooth-to-tail operations, maintenance, sustainment inside the confines of an installation. So in a day, the Director of Public Works or the base civil engineer, or the public works director if you're in the Navy, they used to have a huge blue-collar workforce that maintained the installation day in and day out. Whether it would be a road, or a utility, or a building on the installation, those public work directors could do that work with their in-house workforce. All those blue-collar workers have now gone away, for the most part. Some installations still have some, but not much. So they can't take care of the installations anymore. They do not have the workforce to do such. So it has to be contracted out. So about 4 years ago, we started this base operations support program to issue contracts to do facility maintenance, roads and grounds, which includes mowing the grass and plowing snow, pest management, and other things on the installation that allows that installation to run day in and day out. We do the entirety of the Northwest United States for the reserve component, the Army Reserve component. It's a command called the 88th Regional Support Command up there in the Northwest U.S., the 19 states from Seattle inward. And so all of their installations, all of their facilities, we're maintaining those. And then we have about 5 or 6 active duty installations that we're performing base ops on today. And again, that's tooth to tail. Everything inside the wire that needs to be maintained, sustained, or repaired. That's what this program does. All right, then the Ranges and Training Lands program, another central program mandated by Department of the Army. They came to Huntsville Center and said, hey, we want you to do the design, the quality control, the program or project design review, scope review, preparing the DD Form 1391s is the form that we use to initiate and get a project approved. That's what this program does. They're the experts in ranges and training lands. Now you might imagine, as technology changes each and every day, the weaponry and the armaments that we use in the military change every day because of the technology. That means the range that was built 10 years ago probably isn't suitable for that new armament. And so it's a continual upgrade of the ranges to keep pace with the armaments that are being used in today's weapons. Slide, please.
Okay, and I just want to make a footnote. We are partnering with SBA all the time on ways to save you time and money if you're a small or a large business. So last year, for the first time, we held a virtual industry day. It was live in several locations provided by the Small Business Administration. It was also captured via webinar so that if you could not attend, you could ask questions live, and it was posted on Facebook. So we are continuing to evolve and use technology so that if you can't come to an event like today's event, it will be on Facebook as well, so that if you have subcontractors or other partners who were not able to come to the event and you want them to be able to see what we're talking about, you can point them, and we'll give you the website at the end of the presentation of where they can go. So I'm going to talk about some of the programs under the facilities program. And I also want to point out that we work with Ability One, which is the old National Institute for the Severely Handicapped, National Institute for the Blind, on some of the programs such as janitorial. So as we set things out regionally, we are working hand in hand with Ability One so that potentially some of these projects could be handed over to those groups. And we work with SBA and GSA. GSA is helping us out on many of our programs. Many of our furniture buys are bought through GSA schedule, as well as some of our IT, the Vocera one that we talked about earlier, the same thing. So we urge you, if you are a small business, make sure that you're getting with GSA, you're talking to them about the hallways. They have different hallways for facilities and things like that, because we leverage every possible contract tool that we can, because we're trying to save the taxpayer money. If there's already some kind of contract tool out there that is suitable for us, we're going to use those contract tools. And I know many of you have been approached by your GSA reps talking to you about the gateways and the hallways in GSA. So make sure you're paying attention. Make sure you get registered under every NAICS code that you can so that you maximize your opportunities with us. This particular program is near and dear to my heart. I love master planning. And as Chip pointed out, we're losing skill sets at our Department of Public Works and things like that. So what you can do is you can come to us and we will prepare your 1391 for you. And that's the form that we use to tell Congress what it is we're going to build or repair. And we're going to make sure that we're meeting all the uniform facility codes, that it meets whatever requirement. If you're a Navy base and you have different requirements, or you're in a certain area of the country where you have to have earthquake protection or something like that, we will make sure that all those requirements are captured and that what the money that we're asking Congress for is appropriate for what it is that you need constructed or repaired. Next slide. And here's another one of our 100% small business set-asides, and this is what we were talking about for the 88. Because these are government-owned facilities across the Northwest. As many of you know, we'll be in, say, a GSA building, so it may be the building owner who provides the janitorial services. But since these are government buildings spread across, and we're talking also things like snow removal and things like that. There were literally hundreds of contracts in place. And we have been working with SBA and our headquarters to consolidate these requirements, still setting it aside for small business so that we can spend taxpayer dollars more wisely. Next slide. And this is the same when I was talking about, with the grounds maintenance and all these kind of things for all these unique facilities. Because it's very difficult, for this to be managed without some kind of central management for it. And when you go upstairs to the booth, you can get more information on, there's lots and lots and lots of subcontracting opportunities, under these, once they're awarded. And you might think about partnering up with somebody as well. And I want to remind you that if you do partner up with somebody for a particular procurement, make sure that that entity, that partnership, that mentor-protege relationship, whatever it is entered into SAM. Because that entity needs to be entered in, or we can't make an award to you. Next slide. So again, some more of our maintenance programs, and lots of subcontracting opportunities. This one purely set aside for small business. Next slide. Okay, our utility monitoring program. This one is not set aside, and we'll talk about how we do the set aside decision a little later in the program. But again, many subcontracting opportunities under this. So throughout the United States and the territories, plus our OCONUS locations, we will be providing this service. Next slide. Okay, Chip talked about this facilities reduction program, and I talked to you a little bit about the hallways and GSAs. We put our contract out on GSA because this contract is the least expensive per square foot, and we won best in class, right? So there's a lot of push for best value for the government and making things as inexpensive as possible. So GSA is creating these blue ribbon contracts basically to show this is the structure we need, this is the kind of pricing we need, this is the scope that everybody understands and can propose on, right? So when you're looking at your NAICS code and trying to line it up, you'll know that that scope is exactly what we're talking about. So this is coming up, and we are going to do a reverse industry day with this, right? As we said, we're best in class right now on GSA, and we want to stay there. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow you, and again, this will be virtual, to tell us what's new. Are there things that are no longer cost effective for recycling? NPR was just talking about how China was going to take a lot of our recycled materials anymore, because they have enough of their own. So has that changed, right? We need to know that as we're putting the next version of these contracts in place. So we're going to reach out to industry. We really want to partner with you and get your best ideas on how we should shape the next requirement.
Hey, Colleen, before you go on, I just want to add one thing on this one, this reverse industry day. Knocking the building down is easy, relatively easy, right? Figuring out what's in that building, what hazardous materials may be in there isn't so easy. Right now, literally, we got somebody walking around with a clipboard, a piece of paper on it, and he or she is, maybe removing a ceiling tile or two, going into the mechanical room, tapping on the insulation on the pipes. That's not good enough. Technology today can do non-destructive testing of facilities to tell you what is in there. And so what we're looking for on this Reverse Industry Day is, what are your ideas on using technology to get a better characterization of these facilities up front, so that when the destruction contractor or the demo contractor comes in there, they know exactly what they're getting into. Far too often, we think we've done a good characterization, and then you start knocking the building down and you say, oh my gosh, what's that? Right? And there's something in there that we just didn't find during the characterization. So we're looking for better means of using technology, hopefully from a non-destructive perspective, to figure out what's in these buildings and how we should characterize it. Is it hazardous or not? And if it is hazardous, what is the hazardous material and how should it be handled? So again, you don't have to go anywhere for this. It's going to be on the web, and we're looking for industry's idea on how to better characterize buildings.
That's fine.
Okay, now I'm going to move over to the energy portfolio. This is also big business in the Huntsville Center. Not many districts or centers or anything else in the Corps of Engineers work in this space. It's a unique space. It's a relatively new space, but relatively new. It's been around for 25 years, but it's gaining more and more momentum day by day. As Congress appropriates less and less funding for new construction, for military construction, MILCON, on DoD post camps and stations, it's incumbent upon DoD to find other ways to fund these projects. And so these first three on the slide are one of the ways to get other people's money to do this construction and upgrade facilities from an energy perspective. So all three of these programs use third-party financed funds. So an energy savings company, an ESCO, will come in and they'll look at an installation, or maybe a facility. We can make it all the way down to a facility, or we can do an energy assessment across the entire installation. And they make recommendations to the government on, here's how we can save the government money by making your facilities or your utilities more efficient. So the first one up top there, the ESPC, that does use energy savings companies, and they do just as I said. They come in, they do an assessment, they tell the government, here's all the energy conservation measures that can be applied, and oh, by the way, here's how much money we can save the government on your utility bill by executing these energy conservation measures. The government pays no money up front for these things. The ESCO, the energy savings company, partners with a third-party financer, and they provide the money to implement the construction or the installation of new HVAC systems or new controls, whatever it might be, to make these facilities and utilities more efficient. And the ESCO and the financer are paid back through the savings to the utility bill. So if I used to pay $100,000 a month for power, and I execute one of these ESPCs, and now my bills drop down to $75,000 a month, there's a $25,000 savings there to the garrison, to the installation. That savings goes back to the ESCO, who implemented those energy conservation measures, and that's how they're paid back. Most of these are long-term contracts, upwards of 25 years, to make them profitable enough for energy savings company and third-party financiers to offer on this work. So that's what the first one is. The second one, PPA, just like the first, however, it's for renewable energy only. So solar power, hydropower, things of that nature is what the PPA does. We work directly with the Department of the Army. We've got an office up there called the Office of Energy Initiatives to scope these projects, to prioritize these projects, and to get these contracts awarded. And then the utility energy servicing contract is very much like the first one, the ESPCs, but sometimes you only have one utility provider in town, and there's no way to get around it. So if I'm at Fort Benning in Georgia, it could be that Georgia Power is the sole provider of electricity to that installation. Well, you can't bring in an outside energy savings company. Georgia Power won't allow it. They own the power on that grid going into Fort Benning. So we have to deal with a utility provider exclusively if we're in that type of situation. So that's what we do. We can't open it up to all energy savings companies. We're just dealing with a single utility provider. Slide, please. Okay, ESS, electronic security systems, just what it says. Anything to increase the security, electronic security of a facility, utility, or infrastructure. That's what these folks do. That's also big business in the Huntsville Center. And then the utility monitoring control systems, anything to do with really the HVAC or the industrial control systems that control things inside that facility, but is really focused on the electrical and mechanical pieces of the facility, the UMCS. Army metering. The Army wanted to know about 10 years ago, how much power are we using? And nobody could answer the question because we didn't have any meters on our buildings. There was one meter on the installation, so you knew how much the installation was consuming, but you had no idea where the energy hubs were on the installation, nor did you have any idea where the energy efficient facilities might be. So the Army said, okay, these are our critical facilities, or the ones that we think are consuming the most power, go hang a meter out there. So Huntsville Center was tasked to go hang 13,000 meters. We hung them. And then the Army said, okay, how much power are we using? And everybody looked at each other and said, well, I don't know. Well, so why not? We just hung 13,000 meters, and they said, well, we don't have anybody to read the meters. So part 2 of this program was to come back and connect all those meters to the network, the IT network on the installation, so we could collect the data remotely and automatically. So that's what this program is doing right now. They are hanging meters on other facilities above and beyond the 13,000 that we were originally tasked with, but they're also going back and connecting all these meters to the IT network. That's big business. It's not just as simple as taking the meter and plugging it in via a LAN cable to a laptop someplace. Anytime you touch that network, you have to go through a risk management framework process and get the authority to operate on that network. And that's more costly, more time consuming than hanging the meter for sure. So that's what that program is all about. All right, the last one here, Huntsville Center has been deemed by the Army Corps of Engineers headquarters as the Industrial Control Systems Technical Center of Expertise. So that's from an engineering perspective. We've got some real smart guys in the center who really understand cybersecurity as it pertains to controls systems in a facility or a utility. So what we would do, using that program, we would advise people, here's where you're at risk. Here's where your IT network is at risk from a control systems perspective. You know, everything in the building right now is run by a control. It tells the system when to turn the lights on, when to turn the lights off. It tells you who's coming in and out of the building. It tells the HVAC system when to turn on, what the heat settings are, when to set back the running of the heating and ventilation systems because there's no population in the building. All those controls are tied to the IT network. That's where the signal, that's where the command is coming from, or through that IT network. So those controls need to be cyber compliant. Huge, huge deal. So no longer do you have a man or a lady going out there with a hard hat and a toolbox with a multimeter hooking up to something, figuring out what's wrong with this stuff, right? It's all done through the IT network. So our ICS, Industrial Control Systems Technical Center of Expertise, could tell you exactly what was wrong with the building, where you're at risk and where the vulnerabilities are. And then we would leave the customer with that report and go away, and they'd have to figure out, well, how in the hell do I fix it? So this program is the solution. This program is the folks, or are the folks, excuse me, who actually go out there and then fix it. They do away with the vulnerabilities by looking at either replacing the controls and then go through the whole risk management framework process to get the authority to operate for these new systems on the network. So that's what that program does. Slide.
Okay, and now transitioning over, this is another architect engineer service contract, and as we talked about, there aren't a lot of new facilities, so what we're doing is usually retrofitting existing facilities. So this is very complicated for the AE to look through at the master planning. We'll do feasibility studies, engineering reports, cost estimating, value estimating, commissioning and retro commissioning, investigations, because when we know we need to upgrade our HVAC systems, we've got to make sure that we're not putting too much air across, that it's not going to blow out the vents that we already have, that it's affordable, so you can come to us and through this program, we can help the installation decide, you know, what's affordable, what they can spend money on, and whether it's even possible to retrofit that building with what it is that you need. Next slide. Okay, and then this is predominantly a service contract, but sometimes we go over into the construction part of it, because this would be then, once you've got that study done, once you've figured out that it's affordable, that you will be able to retrofit this building, we have a team of contractors who can go in and install the equipment for you, make sure that it's working for the facility, do the commissioning, and have it ready for your folks to get back into the building. This one, again, is one of the ones that is unrestricted but does have a small business reserve, so that if we do have smaller projects, we can set those aside for only the small businesses to compete on. So it's a great opportunity to compete against the big boys, but also to have some projects that you're just competing against other small businesses. Next slide.
Okay, our integrated technology portfolio. This is really a misnomer on the label there, IT portfolio, because it's really not IT at all. It's something like IT, it's something like operational technology, and it's something like automated building systems, all blended together. So these are the programs here that, the first two are unique, and I'll talk about them in a minute, but these are the programs that look at a building holistically. So there's an Army regulation called AR 420-1. It tells you what you must do to describe a project, to get a project approved, and to get a project awarded. And it tells you how you have to scope that project in order for it to be a complete project and to end up at the end of the day with a complete and usable facility. As you've heard Colleen and myself mention several times here this morning, today's buildings are not yesterday's building, right? Everything is tied into the IT network. So from the moment you try to enter a building, it's got some type of electronic security system that's tied into the network. The lights are tied into the network. The HVAC's tied into the network. In a medical facility, all of the medical utilities are tied into the network. Everything's tied into the network. So there's a fine line between what the IT guys do and what the engineers do in a facility. So the IT guys are the guys who buy the servers, buy the laptops, run the network cabling, right? But they're not the people who understand how to write the software to tell the HVAC when to turn on and off. That's not their lane. They're not the people who install these little controls that allow the HVAC to turn on and off, or the lights to turn on and off, or to shut off the security system if you're in a dangerous situation. That takes an engineer. And so the IT community and the engineering community are partnering very, very closely to make sure that we have a holistic, integrated, coordinated system in that building that makes it complete and usable across all of the systems themselves, not just the building anymore. So the first one up there, really, I just want to let you know that Huntsville Center owns the contract for our own IT. Whoop-de-doo, right? So that's not something that most of you are actually going to be involved in, but we own the ACIT contract. The high performance computing, DoD has 5 high-speed data centers across the globe, and we're the folks who maintain those facilities and put their contracts in place so that those high-speed data centers can operate day in and day out. Okay, the communications infrastructure support systems, or CIS squared there, that is the one that I was just talking about that looks at a building holistically and or comes back into a building that didn't have IT before, or OT, operational technology, and installs all those automated building systems and makes sure that they're compatible with one another. And then the medical one on the bottom does the exact same thing, but only in medical facilities. And if you haven't figured it out yet, when you work in a medical facility, whether it be repair, renovation, outfitting and transition, this operational technology stuff, it takes different credentials, it takes different experience than with a regular facility. And that's why these contracts are separated. Folks who are doing general construction, general repair are not necessarily accredited to work in a medical facility. Medical IT, medical construction, takes a whole different set of ASHRAE standard certifications that general construction doesn't have. So that's why they're separated. Slide.
Okay, and on the previous slide, when we talk about the Gen IT and the medical IT, a lot of that stuff is, again, procured through GSA. What we're doing is we're helping people, especially in the hospitals, just provide patient care, and we're making sure that their software gets updated, that patches come through for cyber and things like that. They'll run the help desks for those facilities so that the people running the facility can deal with what they're supposed to be dealing with instead of maintaining the building surrounding around it. Now, for the high-performing computer centers, you know, this is way cool stuff. This is the stuff that'll do the predictions. If there's a tsunami, where do we move the 7th Fleet? How do we get logistical supplies to Puerto Rico? And we have people from across the globe working projects on this. We have a whole separate bank for people who are non-U.S. citizens, say they're graduate students here in the U.S. working on things for us. So this program is for technology insertion. And it's a 100% small business set aside. We're using research and development funds for this. And so this helps us figure out where the next generation of computers are coming from. The life cycle for these computers are about 5 years, but they're refreshed every 3 because the speeds go up, the sizes go down, and what they're capable of doing changes. And what this group does is help us figure out where we should be going with this stuff. What should we procure next? Things like that. Next slide. And then another 100% small business set aside. In fact, this is an 8A set aside. This group is going to help us manage that program. As you can imagine, it's a highly technical program, and we don't have enough resources internally to the U.S. government to help understand what we need for those kinds of technology insertions and things like that. So this program allows us to bring in the best minds to help us to use those computers to the best of their ability. Next slide.
Okay, now we're up to the environmental portfolio. This does contain a lot of environmental stuff, but there's some other stuff lumped in here which has environmental implications to it, and thus it's under this portfolio. So our Environmental and Munitions Center of Expertise also belongs to Huntsville Center, but it is not here in Huntsville. It's in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's co-located with the Omaha District. They don't do any project work. These are the folks who are helping DOD and the Army write policy, and they're the folks who help the rest of the Corps of Engineers remain compliant whenever they're doing any environmental work. So they're doing the top level policy coverage advisory mission to all of the Corps of Engineers. They just were tasked in the last 30 days by Department of the Army to be the NEPA evaluators for everything that's NEPA across all of DOD. So that whole NEPA program is now falling up under this ENCA. So no work there, it's all policy driven. Back up one. Okay, and then the DSMOA program, anything that's a DOD installation post-camper and station. It's a partnership where we work with the state and or another entity to do environmental restoration, environmental cleanup, and that's what that DSMOA program is all about. And then we have the circular program also up underneath our EMCX, the Military Munitions Response Program, remediation systems evaluations, and then long-term monitoring and optimization. So if there's a lot of ordnance out there, folks, right, on all these old post camps and stations, stuff that didn't detonate when it was supposed to, and it get stuck on the ground, and now it's been buried for 25 years. So this Military Munitions Response Programs are the folks who go out there and find it, and they're also the folks who eventually would go out there and then safely remove it, or render that munition safe so that the land can be cleared. Slide.
Okay, and this again is 100% small business set aside for remediation of explosives and ordnance. So this can be, we do a lot of stuff in Afghanistan, and our small businesses have been successful in doing OCONUS removal for us. So it's identification, recovery, assessment. We do things in Spring Valley, we do things in the DC area. Anywhere there's stuff that needs to be removed, that's what this contract is for. Next slide. And we're also getting into robotics, so that we are protecting human life and having robots go out to try and do assessments for us and take that risk so that we don't have the human factor involved in that. And again, this is a 100% small business set aside. Next slide.
Okay, the global ops portfolio, these are the folks really who are downrange in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Kuwait, Oman, Jordan, you name it, in the Middle East, and involved in those conflicts day in and day out. So I already talked about the Military Munitions Design Center and Remedial Action Team, but those are the folks who figure out what's on the ground or below the surface. And is it dangerous, and what do we have to do about it, particularly if it's an explosive, like some type of ordnance. Chemical Warfare Design Center, way back when, early in the center's history, we were the chemical and munitions response. That really was our claim to fame back in the 80s. So we're the folks who actually went out and did the construction of the facilities to destroy the U.S. arsenal and a lot of the Russian or Soviet arsenal of chemical munitions. That program is winding down a little bit, but there will always be chemical remediation out there, so it's not going to die. It will still be out there. And the work will be done up underneath that mega contract for a large part that Colleen just talked about. And then the global operations down there, you can see, I already talked about what we're doing. If you listen to the news, right, the North Koreans are saber rattling again, right, threatening to launch ballistic missiles at Guam, Japan, Korea. They're shooting them over the Korean Peninsula or out there into the EC. So the Missile Defense Agency, oh, by the way, right here in town over at Redstone Arsenal, is very, very engaged at building sites that can track those missiles and also building sites that can shoot down those missiles. Most of those sites are going in places where the military used to be. They're not any longer. So they have a whole bunch of munitions up underneath of them. And so in partnership with MDA and the Space and Missile Defense Command, the Army component of MDA, we're out there, you can see, in Poland and in Korea doing land clearance, really of mines, but also unexploded ordnance, things of that nature, so that MDA can come in and build the radar sites and the ballistic missile engagement sites that they need. Okay, slide.
Okay, so we just want to toot our own horn here a little bit. As you can see, that's $637 million worth of prime contracts to small businesses awarded by Huntsville Center last year. Okay, so that doesn't even count the subcontracts that you guys won as well. That's nearly 5,000 actions that we accomplished last year. Next slide. These are the 10 major NAICS codes that we have where we make awards for Huntsville Center. So if you're thinking of expanding, changing and these slides will be posted. So I see some people taking pictures of that. Yeah, this is how you plan where your business needs to go. If you're thinking of growing or morphing a little bit, that's where the money gets spent. Next slide. Okay, we just want to remind you, keep Sam updated. When we're doing our crisis awards at the end of the fiscal year there's nothing more frustrating than, having to call somebody and say, hey, that partnership entity, that's not in there, right? And make sure when you get into that business relationship that you've got Sam updated and that you've got that in there. Again, make sure you're talking to your GSA rep about getting into the gateway, into one of those hallways, because we do a significant amount of our contract awards through GSA schedule so that, again, we can save the taxpayer dollars. Next slide. According to the federal acquisition regulations, the default is that we set our things aside for small business. And as you can see, we do a really good job of that. But when we do send out a request for information, we really ask that you answer us. I've talked to some audiences that they said, I don't have time because, I'm not getting an award out of that. Or, oh, I can tell by how you sent out the RFI that you've got somebody pre-selected. Trust me, we don't. We don't, sometimes we are saying things in a way that makes you think, hey, that's my competitor they're talking about. Please let us know, because that is not our intent. We really do make decisions based on what industry tells us back. right? So if you want even more of those dollars going to small business, please take the time, if at all possible, to answer those RFIs for us. Okay. So, you know, you're going to have an opportunity upstairs to talk to our folks about the different programs. We're going to give you the contact information for our small business people. You can set up meetings with the particular program folks that you have, you know, to show us what you can do for us. Make sure that you do your homework. You know, if you are going to need bonding for some of these hybrid construction service contracts, you may think about partnering up with somebody if you don't have a bonding stream and things like that. So get yourself prepared and then come on and visit us. Next slide. And the next slide. Okay, we just wanted to let you know these are some of the major awards that we made last year. That is construction, the medical repair and renewal. We've got a large business, Oconus, for remediation. We've got already an electronic services security contract in place, some AE contracts, and so if you're looking for subcontracting opportunities this afternoon, many of our primes will be available. What's posted on our website is who the VATOC holders are, or the AEs, so that if you're looking for subcontracting opportunities, you can link up with them. Next slide. Okay, so here's where you can find our information, and you can see this on Facebook, and again, we'll post these slides, which will include the speaker notes so that you have an idea, you know, of some of the things we said here, if it was hard for you to pay attention to all of it. Next slide. Okay, a lot of things are changing, especially with SBA. They're opening up the mentor-protege. They're being very strict. I think you're limited to 1 or 2 mentors or proteges at a time, but they're allowing you to keep the small business size if you have one of their recognized mentor-protege relationships. That is huge. So if you are looking to grow and expand your business and to learn from one of the big boys, this is a great opportunity for you, because then you can compete as a small business on many of those contracts that we've set aside for small businesses.
Okay, before we move into that, just to kind of wrap all this up. Huntsville Center is unique. We're not like a regular U6 geographic district. We don't do any new construction, no Milcom. You didn't see that anywhere on any of those 43 programs. We don't do any civil works programs, so we're not maintaining inland waterways, coastal regions, or anything of that nature. We are the folks who sustain and maintain existing facility, utility, and infrastructure across all of the installation space. That's really what we do in a nutshell. I call ourselves the Mike Rose of the Corps of Engineers, right? We do the dirty jobs that nobody else wants to take on. Most of the districts don't do this type of work because they have a large Milcon or a large civil works program. So it's really niche areas that we focus on that require, as Colonel Hurley opened up with, centralized program or project management or specialized technical expertise that you don't necessarily need out in every district. So as an example, electronic security systems. Electronic security systems in each district's space may be one project every 3 years. And so it's impossible for that geographic district to hire a full-time cadre of electronic security system professionals, because if you only have a project every 3 years, you can't pay them. We're a reimbursable organization. Our salary comes from the S&A that we take off of all the contracts. The Department of the Army does not fund our salary. And so for that district to hire one full-time equivalent person to do one every 3 years project is just not tenable. Right? They couldn't afford it. So, but when you take all of those projects across 43 different districts battle space, it makes sense to lump them all together and have one organization hire 4 or 5 subject matter experts or technical experts and program project managers who understand that business and execute the work from a central location. All of those programs, projects that we went through, Huntsville is the folks who puts the contracts in place. We do the program and project management of it. We do the contract administration over it. But we don't necessarily do the work out on the ground watching the contractor execute. That piece of the pie we do give to the geographic district. And so even though Huntsville may have awarded the contract and we own it, contractually, from supervision and administration perspective, we're using the geographic district to provide quality assurance, to provide contracting officer representation, and to provide safety, inspection, and compliance boots on the ground. So it really is a holistic approach from the Corps of Engineers. The center maintains the subject matter expertise for these technically complex or programs that require central program management, because it doesn't make sense to ship it out to 43 different districts, but we use the geographic district out there to provide oversight on the work out there in the field. So the Huntsville Center spends somewhere between $2 and $4 million a year just putting these acquisitions in place. It's a huge business for us. We own, in order to do the work that we do, you heard Colleen mention 5,000 contract actions, which is spot on. We did 5,000 plus contract awards in fiscal year 2017. We obligated $2.368 billion, which is a huge obligation for one center or one district to do. And the only way we can do that, is to have these acquisitions in place before the requirement becomes a reality. And so it's really, really important. If you want to do work with the Huntsville Center, you've got to go up on that website that Colleen had on her last slide and look for those opportunities. We post every one of them out there for all of these major acquisitions. And you may not be able to compete, if you're a small business, on a $990 million MATOC. Got it. Completely got that. But what you should be doing is partnering with one of the primes who can compete on those contracts, because it's a global effort. And they need dozens and sometimes hundreds of subcontractors underneath of these prime contracts in order to execute the work. And so although it might be a large contract award, and you saw when we went through there, many of them are set aside for small business, some for 8A exclusively, or some both, right? A large and a small component to it. If you can't compete at the MATOC level, IDIQ level, go find a prime and partner with them. That's how you're going to get into the Huntsville Center. That's how you're going to grow your small business. That's how you're going to find work here at the Huntsville Engineering and Support Center. So with that, I'm going to shut up for a little while, and I'm going to ask anybody if they got any questions of either me, or Colleen, or Rebecca, and then we'll drag the colonel out of the upstairs there if we have to. But who's got any questions? Sir, right here.
The question for Colleen. The question is, can you tell us the status of small business set aside for Oconus work from a congressional, SBA, and/or FAR standpoint?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I can answer the question for you, Colleen. The Code of Federal Regulations has changed to allow for Oconus set-asides for small business. However, the FAR has not yet caught up. So, our warrant authority is based on FAR, but we're working towards it. And believe it or not, we even have had this past fiscal year a lot of small businesses that have competed without it being a set-aside and won.
Yeah, so basically the policy hasn't caught up with the regulation. I also wanted to point out that there are 19 NAICS codes that have been changed for this year. They've either increased or decreased, so make sure you're paying attention, whichever NAICS codes you're assigned under, that you know what the small business threshold is now.
I heard that you are trying to save money by giving the contracts to small business people, but also you are saying that you can deem for the large amount contracts. So the large companies are going to charge their money, and then small business are going to charge their money. So the project is not going to be under less money. It will increase your value of that by adding, teaming agreement or something like that. So how can you save money by bringing teaming partners with small business?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I quite understood the question.
How do you save money by awarding to a teaming arrangement? Teaming arrangements with large businesses, a higher level.
Yeah, so everything we do is competed, right? So if that large business wants to win, they're gonna understand they're competing with a whole bunch of other large businesses. And so they have to come in, they really have to sharpen their pencil to come in with the best cost, right? And a lot of our acquisitions are not just solely cost focused. In fact, most of them are best of value, where technical and past performance is more important than cost. But nonetheless, normally at the end of the day, cost is a huge consideration. So in order for them to be competitive, they have to sharpen their pencils and get those prices down. We don't negotiate with the small business if it's a joint venture or a partnership or a sub to a prime. The prime does. So you're going to be in discussions with the prime on your cost if you're a small business wanting to get appended to them, and you need to sharpen your pencil as well, right? So it's that competition that gives us the best price.
Next question? Meet me halfway. You'll be able to print it offline. The
Yes.
presentations will be available online. We don't have a paper copy today, but you can download it yourself and print it, sure. Next question.
We got one. Oh, okay, go ahead. I'm back, and then we'll come back here. Did you have one up there? I'm sorry. Oh, okay, go ahead and ask your question.
To answer the gentleman in the back, there's a live video that was posted on the Huntsville webpage, Facebook page. That's probably going to be available in about 2 hours.
Okay, so live video available in 2 hours on the Facebook page,
And then replay it.
and they can replay it, and then the slides are up there as well. There's a link to all the slides.
Question over here.
Yep, I got you. I'll be right over there in a minute.
With respect to the question that the lady asked earlier, she may also be referring to your unrestricted with small business reserve and how that, the operational aspect of that.
Yeah, if you were asking about when we do have a MATOC where we've got large businesses and we've got a small business reserve, we usually put upfront in the solicitation what the criteria would be for setting aside projects for small business. Complexity, size, it just depends on the type of business. And then the government will make that decision and put out to the MATOC holders that this particular project is just set aside for those small businesses. Okay, thanks, Sandra.
All right, we had one over here.
So if we have customer want to send their requirement to Corp engineer, what's the process? Who is the point of contact? That's the first question. Second, what's the cutoff date for the end of fiscal year requirement? And third one is, if my customer is not in Army, do they require interagency agreement if they are in different services like Air Force?
Yep, 3 great questions. So you may have to remind us of a couple.
Yeah.
But let me talk about the first piece, and I'll hand the mic over. So you got a customer out there, an installation, DPW, whoever, and they need some work and they want to come to Huntsville. Who do you call, right? Out there, the 43 programs, each program has a program fact sheet. And on the bottom of that fact sheet is the program manager and the project manager's telephone number. And so that's who they call. The inject point, we like to keep it at the program project level so they can discuss things from a position of knowledge and make sure that we understand what the requirement is before we kick it on. All right, the other 2 pieces.
I know one was, do they need an interagency agreement? You know, if they're not Army, then there needs to be something for them to come to us, right? And they will follow the Army rules. So, because it's our warrant, so we'll follow those rules. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what the middle question was. Okay, so the cutoff dates. The cutoff dates are established by each program independently. And usually they're in June or July. And they're published to all the customers. But each program decides based on what's in the queue and their resources when the cutoff time is. If it's an emergency, we do have a way to accept projects after that, but we highly encourage, we can get things scoped, we can even have them competed and have them ready to put money on, right? So we highly encourage installations to do that pre-planning, do the master planning, think through, if I am going to have some extra O&M dollars available, what's my priority, for working things through.
Yeah, so Colleen saw me creeping closer and closer, that's why she added that caveat. We do have cutoff dates, but we will look at every project that comes in after the cutoff date, and the PDT will determine if they can get it out the door before the end of the fiscal year or not. So the cutoff dates are our general rule of thumb, but there's always something unknown out there. She mentioned getting contracts prepared to award on the 1st of September of 2017. Out of that $2.36 billion that the center obligated this FY, or last FY, we were only at $900 million on the 1st of September that had actually been obligated. All the rest of it, a big hunk of it, was subject to availability of funds, waiting for customer money to come in. So what we do is we put it out on the street, we solicit it, we do source selection evaluation boards, we select an offerer, and then we put it on the shelf. We don't make the award until we get the money. So that's a huge end-of-year business for the center, waiting for that money to come in. So if they know of a requirement, get it to us. We'll build the packet, we'll get it right up to ready to award, and then we'll cease on it until we get the money. All right, any other questions?
Colleen, did I hear you say that the prime contractors would be available this afternoon? Because our schedule looks like it closes at 12, so I was looking for clarification about that. Thank you.
Yeah, the SAME event there will be the prime contractors available afternoon, yes.
Just a minute. Go ahead, Don. Right to your right.
And you can maybe answer this. Can you publish your FY17 goals and how well you did? And then can you publish your FY18 goals? You do get those from the Corps of Engineers.
And we can.
All right, we got a question up front here. But yes, sir, we can and we will. And we do each year.
And this is probably maybe a big picture question, but in regards to AE services, when we try to team with a small business, where the small business is going to try to go into be prime, one of the big hurdles we run into is as the small business and AE services, they have to self-perform 50% of the work, compared to construction, where the small business only has to complete 15% of the work. So I'm wondering, is there any consideration, or might there be some consideration in the future for the small businesses and the AE services to reduce that the small business has to perform from 50% down to 30% or some number smaller than 50%?
There's nothing in the works right now. I mean, the AE is just in there with every other service. For every service category, the prime must, if they're a small business, must self-perform over 50% of the work. So, I mean, that's something you can lobby Congress about. I'm not very hopeful of that.
Yeah, so that's statute, right? That's law. There's nothing the Huntsville Center does that can change that. But again, if enough business lobbies Congress and say, hey, here's why we would like that change. They've been known to change. They will change it if you get enough people asking. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Yes, ordinance holders incorporated small hub zone firm. Can you talk about some of your hub zone goals? I saw a slide mentioning how much you spent on the hub zone, but can you talk about service disabled and hub zone goals a little bit?
Yeah, across Corps, across Army, we don't meet our hub zone goals. And part of that is because the 2010 census changed where hub zones are. So there are less hub zones. SBA is talking about either changing it or expanding their definition of hub zone. So because right now it's not really possible, for us to meet our goals. It's not something we can just set aside for what you can for Hub Zone, but you have to have competition, and we rarely do. So,
Talk about all the goals, that was the rest of this question.
yeah, I mean, we'll post a slide that tells you what the goals are, what the percentage is. You know, it's a small percent, I think it's like 2% for Hub Zone.
It's 3.
3, okay. And then the service disabled, is that the one you wanted to talk about, or just the
Well,
other
I'm
ones?
just kind of curious in general. I mean, in the larger MATOCs that I'm seeing, I'm not seeing specific Hub Zone goals, even a Hub Zone small business plan or, 8A goals within, it's just a small business.
No, we do, we set specific goals
Yeah.
unique for each procurement.
We didn't.
And also, what's really important, sorry, Colleen, is if you do not answer the sources sought in its entirety to show that you're technically capable of performing whatever set requirement is that's come out, then we cannot set it aside for you as a Hub Zone or service disabled vet. You need to answer now. Otherwise, we're going to assume we don't have enough for competition, and we're going to set it aside for small business.
When we're doing our best value procurements, we have it broken down, what the goals are for each one of the categories under the small business. And that is one of the evaluation factors we use in every one of our best value procurements. We're even doing it on the task order level in many cases, right? So we are always looking at that, and, you'll be found deficient, if you're a prime and you are not showing us how, you can't just say, I'm going to use small businesses. We're looking for what's the firm's name and what are they going to do for you. So we are very much attuned to that.
I got a question right here.
In terms of your sources sought and your RFIs, do you have a format or a template for us to respond to? So to make sure that we're answering your questions and answering the mail, but it's presented in the format that you would like.
I think that's program specific. Depends on the type of information that they need for a certain requirement.
Yeah, if we are truly looking to see that you're qualified, small business or women-owned business or whatever it is, then yeah, we will specifically say you need to show us or tell us, that you have this bonding capability or this experience or something like that. But usually these are going out, just on the web, right? So it's hard to attach something for you to send back to us.
Any other questions?
Okay, well, again, I want to say thank you for participating here this morning. We really do appreciate everybody attending. The real icing on the cake of these things is not Colleen and me and Colonel Hurley sitting up here talking to you. It's you being able to go up outside the room here behind you and talk to the program managers, talk to the project managers, talk to the project delivery team, the engineers, the contracting folks who are out in each of the booths. Spend time with them, you see what we do. Whatever piqued your interest, go find those folks at that table. They can walk you through not only the acquisitions, but they can tell you a little bit more detail what they're about, and they can give you the gist of the program. And if you've never done work with the Huntsville Center before, leave those folks your card, your business card, and what we'll try to do, back through our small business chief here, is to, if you want to, bring you in and have you do a capabilities briefing to the team, so they can understand what your niche is, what you do for a living, and how you might be able to help the Huntsville Center in executing the workload that we have. So again, thank you very much. Please do spend time out back, and if you have any questions, Colleen and I will be down here for a couple minutes. Thank you.